In the world's greatest country, in its most pivotal state, lies Pennsylvania's Lehigh Valley, an economic hub that's as vibrant as it is ideologically eclectic. Its just over 700,000 residents will play a critical role in deciding the course of American leadership and thereby the world. Who are the thinkers, workers, and leaders that will decide our collective fate? Join me, Moshe Kurtz, as I walk through the valley and find out. Thank you for joining me today as I walk through the valley with Sheriff Joseph N. Hanna, who currently serves as the Sheriff of Lehigh County here in Pennsylvania, following a dedicated career in the Allentown Police Department where he served as its Chief of Police. Among his many impressive credentials, I had to whittle it down a little bit, Sheriff Hanna served as Director of Training at the Allentown Police Academy, where he continues to be a part-time adjunct instructor for police recruits. During his law enforcement career, Sheriff Hanna has earned recognition as a top law enforcement professional and has received numerous awards, including the Allentown Crime Watch Police Officer of the Year and the prestigious Pennsylvania State Police Colonel John K. Schaefer Award for Professional Excellence. And while those who are going to be listening to the recording on the podcast don't realize this, we are sitting currently in Congregation Sons of Israel's boardroom in front of a live audience doing our first live podcast interview. Now, what I need to point out also is that this is not the first time that the sheriff actually joined us here at the synagogue. Very recently, a few months ago, he came for the installation ceremony. So it's a pleasure to have you back with us. And what I want to start off by asking you, just so we could kind of get to know you a little bit better, is you served as police chief in Allentown. You're serving currently as the sheriff of Lehigh County. Is this what 10-year-old little Joseph Hanna always imagined he'd be doing?
Wow. No, actually, but, I just want to digress one moment here, Rabbi, and I want to congratulate you. You hit the ground running coming here to our community, and all the things that you are doing to unify everyone in this community. Me, myself, as well as my staff, are looking forward to working with you in the future on your goals and objectives. So I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you. And while we're thank you so much. And while we're on that, I should say I had a great conversation with the sheriff before we recorded this. And when I told him about the idea of all these interviews we're doing with elected officials and with community leaders, movers and shakers, he said it's a great idea because an educated electorate is the best electorate. And I really believe in that philosophy, and I appreciate you coming with us today. So without any further ado, it's not about me. This is about you, Sheriff.
Well, actually, going back to my younger days when I was, 8, 9, 10 years old, my father's cousin, who I recognized as uncle, we called him uncle, he was a police officer in Allentown for over 34 years.
Wow.
And he rose through the ranks, and an interesting story about his name was Charles, and they called him Chinky. That was his and he was legendary in the sense that he in his physical stature, I mean, he was fearless. He wore a white shirt like I'm wearing today, and he was no one to fool with. But the biggest thing about my Uncle Chink was his heart. And he really took public service seriously. He was a quintessential public servant. He was a man of faith. He was a reader at our church every Sunday, raised 2 boys, and he had a unique balance of being able to balance everything, but still offering himself up whenever he was needed to the community as a whole. So he would come over when he was a captain. He would come over in uniform. He'd stop by when he was working the middle shift, and my mother would make coffee, and he'd sit down. So I think that was probably the most profound impact on me, not only to become a police officer, but to become a public servant. He'd have his police radio there. I'd be listening to the police radio. And I think that was what started my destiny to eventually go on to be a police officer in Allentown.
That's remarkable. So you really had this family precedent, this role model that you had to look up to in public service. And I think you also mentioned that you mentioned faith as well as a part of your family life as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that? We're sitting here in a synagogue.
Yeah.
I'm a rabbi. So when I hear anything about faith, that all of a sudden starts ringing bells for me.
Well, I think, you know, and God rest the souls of my mother and father, but I think that they raised me to view everybody, the qualities of everybody, and that we have more commonalities than we have differences, whether it be faith or whatever that may be. So yes, I'm Christian Orthodox, Antioch Orthodox, and my faith has played a big role in who I am. It's grounded me. But by the same token, I like to explore, just like you gave me an education upstairs today, I like to explore other religions and to be open-minded to hear what other people, you know, how they live and what they have to offer.
Well, as you said, we definitely have a lot in common. You go to an Orthodox church, we're an Orthodox synagogue. It's all the same, right?
Yeah.
But in all honesty, I'm sure we do have a lot of shared values, and that's something that would be interesting to explore. Though something that I think popped into my head, and when I was doing my basic research of going through previous interviews that you've engaged with, I saw a Morning Call interview that they already thought of the question I was going to ask you. So you're well prepared for this one.
Maybe.
When I think of a sheriff, I still have this vision from my childhood as the old Wild West, and you have these marauders who just robbed the town bank, and then there's a showdown at high noon with the sheriff and the guy, you know, and they take out the revolvers, and that's kind of how the movies usually portray the sheriff. I would imagine the modern day iteration here in Pennsylvania is a little bit different than the old Wild West. And I would also imagine, I know there has to be a distinction between what a police chief does, which is what you did previously for a huge chunk of your career, versus what you're doing today as a sheriff. So I think it'd be very interesting just for us to understand, what does a sheriff's department do versus what a police department does?
Well, I think, and let me go back to the 7th century, because
oh wow,
the derivation of where the sheriff, the term sheriff came about, came from Old England, and the sheriffs at that time, it was a split. The words were shire. Okay, so the shire was basically what we know as a county today,
and like Lord of the Rings,
and reef, which recognized the sheriff as like the caretaker or the guardian of the shire, of the county. So back then, they were appointed by the king and reported to the king, and those sheriffs in each shire had they had different responsibilities. Protection of the people and as an overseer there, but they also collected taxes for the king.
Very popular.
And they ran the jails. So then in the 17th century, we brought that here. But in answer to your question, it all depends on what state you are, because in Pennsylvania, by statute, the sheriffs in each of the 67 counties have limited law enforcement powers. And what I mean by that is, we can make arrest for a breach of the peace, what's called a breach of the peace, but we don't do patrol like the police departments do. We don't have, by statute, we can't do investigations. So we have to pass, like if we are involved in an incident, we pass that on to either the Allentown Police Department or the district attorney's office with their county and detectives to follow up on the investigative part of it. If you go to many of the other states in the country, they are full service, and in the hierarchy of law enforcement, the sheriffs are generally above the police chiefs, and they will assist, much like we're seeing now, unfortunately, with the Nancy Guthrie investigation.
Right.
The Pima County Sheriff, I mean, he is a full service law enforcement agency.
Right, but I wouldn't sell yourself short. You're able to serve warrants also, if I'm not mistaken.
We do, and we serve warrants. We serve protection from abuse orders. We serve civil process. Okay, one person files a lawsuit against another, that comes to our office to effectuate service. And there's a number of other things. I mean, there's a real estate component. We have sheriff sales the last Friday of every month. We have, I issue, and I solely, as the sheriff, issue gun permits to carry concealed. So each sheriff in the 67 counties is the sole issuer of those permits.
Interesting. I'm curious, are you seeing, this wasn't on the script, but because you brought up, are you seeing an uptick in firearms purchases these days?
I don't follow the purchases, but we have seen in my 10 years here as sheriff, I've seen a marketed increase every year in permits to carry concealed.
Well, this is good, because this leads us to one of our audience questions. Unfortunately, there's no shortage of violence going on nowadays. There's political violence broadly. Right now we're recording in a synagogue, so concerns over anti-Semitism is a concern. But the truth is, violence we see in the newspapers on a regular basis, and people are considering whether they want to purchase firearms for protection. So I'm going to read audience question number 1 verbatim. Quote, is there a specific weapon you can recommend for a little old lady? In parentheses, we usually have poor grip strength. Question mark, end of quote.
Okay. That's not an easy answer. Now, in order to answer what you just asked me, is there are a number of gun sales shops throughout Lehigh County and Northampton County, Relic being one of them. Heritage is down in Easton, Relic is up in Whitehall. And they not only sell guns, but they have ranges. And anybody that would want to purchase a weapon can go up there, and you can sample a number of weapons, and they have expert people that can fit the person with the weapon. That's the easy answer. The second answer is that if you are going to purchase a gun for protection, number one, you should be trained in it. And there's NRA classes, and I believe those the places that I had mentioned actually do instruction. But you have to be prepared to use that gun if you get into a situation. And speaking from experience, it's a difficult and split-second decision that you have to make to pull your gun, fire it at another human being, and maybe take their life. So you have to be prepared for all of the above if you are going to carry it. If you think that you're going to carry a weapon and pull it out and scare somebody, you may find them disarming you, and now you are the victim.
So this is actually a concern, not that I'm seeing on the county level, but with, let's just say, certain parts of the federal law enforcement, that there's a concern about not just simply civilians purchasing firearms and going about untrained, but what about law enforcement officers, whether they be on the municipal level, whether they be on the federal level. From what you're seeing, are all levels of law enforcement receiving receiving that training that's necessary to engage responsibly with firearms?
From my experience, yes. Federal, state, local. I can speak from the local and state standpoint, and we have to qualify with our firearms every year, and that includes a whole array of going through different aspects of firing from different distances, putting ourselves in different situations. We also have what's called it's an acronym, a FATS machine, which is a simulator. And we have...
I said a fax machine at first.
Yeah, no, FATS machine.
Okay.
Well, which is a simulator that actually has a large screen, and they have different scenarios that you are going to be put into and engage.
We actually have a Nintendo Wii in our game room, so it's kind of the same thing when you think. I'm kidding.
Yeah, I'll have to try that out.
Have to try. We're busy sprucing it up for our teenagers. You know, it should be a lot of fun.
But also, in answer to that question, is the fact is that we always are going to be faced with the human element, no matter how much training we give to police officers, no matter what level, federal, state, local. It's a split-second decision that's made, and it's based on that immediate perception of what that law enforcement officer believes. If they're in danger of their life being taken or someone else's life being taken. A quote from, and this had to do with all the riots back in the 60s out in L.A., and former Chief William Parker was asked the question of well, how can we curb the police actions? And he said, we will always be faced with this because we have to recruit from the human race. So there's always that human element that for as much as we do training, we can't always control it.
Right, and this is the hard thing for me, because I'm not a law enforcement official. I'm not trained in these things, but I will see. I mean, we don't have, it's only if you want to, what's going on in Minneapolis now, and we see these videos on social media where there are altercations, I think that's a good neutral term to use, between law enforcement officials and civilians, and you'll see some people who'll be saying, well, they should not be disregarding direct orders from law enforcement, and you'll see people on the other side saying, well, that law enforcement official jumped to using deadly force too soon. So just like, me as a consumer, someone who's reading and watching the media, how should I make sense of these kind of scenarios?
It's very, very difficult, because sometimes both mindsets, or what you've just described, are correct. Okay. I've been in situations in my 46 years in law enforcement where there have been people that, peaceful demonstration is a part of who we are. It's a part of our democracy. And law enforcement officers understand that. And we have training in de-escalation. We have training in understanding that everyone has a right to do that. But by the same token, there are some disruptors that come out there to bait law enforcement. Right. And once again, we're still dealing with that human element. And I think that that's one of the things that you've seen in Minneapolis, other parts of the country. I don't weigh in on anything like that, because I'm not in that situation. Yeah. And when I get into that situation, and I've been in that situation, it's very, very difficult and trying, because you're a lot of times what happens is, and what I've found is taking a step back. I'm trained as a hostage negotiator, a crisis negotiator. I ran the team in Allentown for a number of years. And one of the things that we've always trained in is, it's not being a good talker, it's being a good listener. And that's the key. And I think that that's something that in law enforcement in general, we need to carry with us.
It's a good lesson. I'll speak for myself, for anyone. I have to learn to do more listening and less talking, so I'll take that advice as well. Just on that topic, I don't want to harbor on it for too long, but I am curious. One of the discussions that's happening in the news because of current events in Minneapolis and other cities is the relationship between the sheriff's office and other levels. I mean, I'm discovering as I educate myself, there's so many different ways to split up the different levels of, I don't know what you even call it, territory. There's state level, there's the federal level, there's the city level, there's the school district, how the school districts separate themselves, there's how the counties separate themselves. There's all sorts of jurisdictions that are piled on top of each other in a jigsaw puzzle. So how does the Lehigh County Sheriff's Office interact or not interact with the city? And also, I'm curious if you're willing to go there is with the federal level. And I'll just, instead of beating around the bush, I'll just say I know that some sheriff's offices no longer want to work with ICE because of certain objections they're having to the tactics that are being used. But how do you see your position being on the county level vis-a-vis the city and vis-a-vis the federal law enforcement?
Well, I think, since 9/11, we've learned a lot, and we've learned that we need to be not only working together, but cooperating and sharing information. And I think we've done a good job on every level, federal, state, and local, in doing that. In my limited role as the sheriff, one of the things that how I approach my responsibilities is I approach them without prejudice. I don't. I have a two-pronged test for everything that not only myself does, but also our deputies. Is what we're doing legal? And if it is legal, how does it expose our office and our county to liability?
Yeah.
So those are always the two questions that I'm asking. I know that there has been a number of police departments, sheriff's offices across the county that have, across the country that have signed on with the federal government, with ICE to assist them. We have not done that. I have not done that. For various reasons that I won't go into, but I have not done that, and that's pretty much kind of where we're at. But I work very closely with all of the local police departments. The advantage I have is I spent over 34 years with the Allentown Police Department, so I know many of the
relationships already.
Yeah, many of the police chiefs, I know when they came on their departments. So
they're all your juniors then.
So I'm one of the elders.
I didn't mean to say that, but
I am really. But I wear that as a badge of pride,
Very good. So let me go back to a few of our audience questions. We had just a couple more. One of them, this is kind of general, so you can choose how much you want to get into it or not get into it. I'll quote, "What is being done to reduce the overall crime rate in Lehigh County, and how is it going?" And I'm not sure if crime rate is even within your purview, but you could address that.
Yeah. The crime rate actually in Allentown, it varies, but it's down a couple percentage points over the past 2-3 years.
How about the Valley broadly?
And the Valley, I think that the police departments are doing a very, very good job in keeping a lid on crime here. Mm-hmm. Keep in mind that we're so close to New York and Philadelphia, and primarily New York. That over the past decade, we've seen a lot of people that are coming out of New York, committing crimes here, and then going back.
Oh, wow.
So even before I was sheriff, we were working very closely and interacting with NYPD and coordinating things with them. And, we got a lot of bad people off of the street. So it's all a matter of working with other police departments, collaboration, utilizing technology, because even though some of the criminals are benefiting from technology, we're benefiting from technology. Shot spotter that can detect gun reports, gunshots.
Oh, wow.
And there's a number of other varying technological advances that are assisting us.
That's great to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And the final audience question, and I hope I understood it correctly, is that there's now, I don't know if you'll say a trend, or there is an interest in training law enforcement or partnering law enforcement with mental health professionals. Not every call that goes out is necessarily a crime being committed, but it's someone having a mental health crisis. And so how is that being addressed in the Lehigh Valley?
I think, and we're seeing this more and more, that mental health issues have become an epidemic, really, and we've recognized that in law enforcement because we have updated training every year. We have 16 hours of training. Every year, we're finding that a component of that has to do with dealing with mental health and individuals that are suffering from various mental health problems. I'm an advocate for law enforcement to be not only trained, but working with mental health professionals. We go down a dangerous road if you think that you're going to dispatch a mental health professional by themselves, because things can change just in a matter of seconds.
Right. Someone with a mental health crisis can still be dangerous.
Absolutely.
They're right. It's not mutually exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to make sure that those mental health professionals are well protected and they're not just putting themselves in harm's way.
Right. We have a very robust mental health mental health department in Lehigh County. We also have what's called Team MISA. And Team MISA is if someone is arrested and there's a belief that they may have a mental health issue,
mm-hmm.
they may be incarcerated immediately, but Team MISA meets once a week and they review all of these cases and they look to see, well, perhaps this person this is not the right place for them to be. They really need they're more on the mental health side. They need help there rather than looking at them as someone that just has committed a crime. So you have to look beyond that.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And you can just correct me if I'm wrong, but are we seeing more mental health issues nowadays than we used to?
I could only surmise that I think we've seen an uptick in mental health issues and to varying degrees since COVID, and I think that there are some people with severe mental health issues that our government really needs to be putting more funding in. They need to get more. And on a personal note, we have two children. So our son is he's a practicing attorney now, but he spent 11 years with the district attorney's office, and he left there about 2 years ago. But he handled mostly gangs and drug prosecutions. But he also was a part of an element within the DA's office to deal with mental health and deal with mental health issues. So I think it's important that every component of government needs to be contributing to that. The other thing too is, and we're both obviously very proud of our children, as everybody is, but our daughter has a PhD in psychology, and she had a number of job offers in the area, and her last externship she did with the VA in Coatesville, at the Coatesville Hospital. And she said to me, and I tried to persuade her to take a job because she was offered a job at Good Shepherd. And she said, Dad, she says, these couple months that I've worked with these veterans, She said, they need help. She said, I got this job offer. She drives every day, an hour and 20 minutes one way to Coatesville Hospital. But speaking about, and that's a component of public service, you know, that's where her rewards are coming from. So I think that we need to do better. We need to do a better job. We need to have more psychologists. I think there's some people that are actually dangerous to the community. And I think that we did a real disservice years ago when we closed up the state hospitals, because those people needed that component of mental health assistance, but they also, they shouldn't have been roaming the streets. I remember I was with the police department, and they closed up the state hospital, and they just, you know, like opened the doors and let these people out. And they were wandering around, needed mental health assistance, mental health therapy. And they were just wandering around in downtown Allentown, which really is, when you think about it, is a travesty. Yeah. You know?
Sheriff, I'm just curious. This just popped into my head. When you're not busy protecting the county and going to church and spending time with family, what do you do for fun?
Oh, wow.
Are you allowed to have fun even? Is there time for fun?
Yeah. And you know what, Rabbi? I mean, you know, I don't call myself a golfer. I certainly chase the ball around in the nice weather. But aside from that, and aside from spending time with our family, and we've just been blessed with a second grandson.
Mazel tov.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
That's how we say it in Jewish, Hebrew. Mazel tov.
Yes. So that's keeping, and we have a 2.5-year-old, so that's keeping us pretty busy. But, you know, our rewards in life are not necessarily fame or fortune, at least for me. Mm-hmm. And when you say about how do you have fun, I get rewards and I have fun by being a public servant. You know, I recognize myself, and I embrace that title because, you know, when you lay your head down at the end of the day, you have to have a sense of accomplishment, and I have that continually in public service.
I love that. Now, here's something I actually, this is a great question to ask next, which is somehow, maybe I'm just talking to the wrong people, but no matter who I talk to, no matter where they are politically, ideologically, everyone seems to have a very positive opinion of you. I just want to know, because I need advice. What is your secret, Sheriff? You got any advice?
I don't know who you're talking to, but whoever that handful of people were, can you give me their names?
Send out warrants.
Yes. And I think because I make sure that no matter what Joe Hanna's beliefs are, they're not necessarily, they don't bleed over into Sheriff Joe Hanna's beliefs. Mm. And I keep open-minded. I appreciate and I respect everybody's varying opinions, no matter what it is. I may not agree with it. Joe Hanna may not agree with it. Mm. But in my role as a public servant, I have an obligation to hear them out and to understand that, you know, when someone comes to you and they say something, it may not necessarily sound that important to me personally, but I have to realize that that may be the most important thing that to them that they're sharing with me. So that's how I delineate my roles, my personal role versus my public service role.
That you're truly representing your constituency. And I use constituency because here's like a funny thing I discovered, and folks listening, I got permission to ask this question ahead of time, which is I noticed that unlike police chiefs, which are appointed by a mayor, the county sheriff position, just like apparently coroner as well, those are elected offices. So there's actually an R, Republican, that comes after your name. And so what I'm curious is like, what does that even mean to be a Republican sheriff versus a Democrat sheriff? Is there any real distinction between them?
There shouldn't be. No, there really shouldn't be. You know, I've never defined myself by. I've defined myself by being in public service and being a public servant. Never defined myself by party. Everybody that I service, my office services, are served equally and to the best of our abilities. I don't have people come into our lobby and I don't ask them, are you a Republican or Democrat, and they get different service. so that really is secondary. So in answer to your question,
but do you have to like flip a coin for which party a sheriff affiliates, or you just have to choose one of them?
I'm a registered Republican, but I have probably the same amount of Democratic friends as I do Republican friends.
And those are some of the folks that I asked, by the way.
Oh.
Spoke very highly of you.
Yeah.
That's why I'm very impressed by it.
Thank you.
As we are kind of coming into our final round of questions, we've been talking a lot about you, and obviously, Sheriff, you deserve the spotlight. Though what I like to ask folks when I interview them is I like to use cute alliteration, so I call it Lehigh's Lost Legends. Can you give a shout out? Who is somebody or some organization that maybe is not in the limelight, but is doing really important work in the Lehigh Valley that we should know more about?
That's a tough question because there's so many. Well,
I know that you're involved with the Syrian Arab Charitable Association.
Yes.
You want to tell us about your involvement with that?
Yeah. I'm currently the president. We had lost our president. He had passed about 2 years ago. Thank you. But I've been a member there. I've been a board member for over 30 years.
Wow.
And we have an outreach program that helps Syrian people that are immigrating here to assimilate, but it's not unique to, and we also run a food bank, but it's not unique to the Syrian community, even though our organization is right within the Syrian community in the 6th Ward of Allentown. So it's open to anybody that would need assistance, anybody that, those in need of food, will provide for them. But that's because I'm half Syrian, half Italian.
Oh wow! You know that we're actually having an Italian themed meal coming up on our holiday. We should be inviting you as our guest for that.
I'll be back.
As Arnold Schwarzenegger said.
Yeah, but both my paternal grandparents, they both immigrated here in the early 1900s from Syria, from Amar, Syria, and my maternal grandparents immigrated here from Italy, and my grandfather on my father's side, he raised 5 children. He was a junk man. They call them recyclers now, but that's what he did. And my Italian grandfather was a blacksmith, and he worked at Lehigh Structural Steel, who that was a company that manufactured a lot of our bridges throughout the country, and
here you are doing such important work in one of the most important positions in our county. So that's a true immigrant story over there.
Well, I guess it is, but I think the important thing, and sometimes people they lose sight of this. I think you have to know where you came from to know where you're going. And I've always tried to focus on that and focus my parents were blue collar people. So I think that that helps me to relate to the multimillionaire that I'm dealing with, or to the person that, needs a meal.
Very good. And for our final question, as I ask old guests who come on the show, again, cute little alliterations. I call it the Lehigh Legacy, which is, what do you consider to be your most important accomplishment? Having served in Allentown Police Department as Lehigh County Sheriff currently, and in many nonprofit and volunteer and community volunteer capacities, what to you stands out as perhaps one of your greatest accomplishments during your many years of community service? And since you still are in community service, what are you still looking to accomplish? I don't end off with easy questions.
I don't. Yeah. as far as accomplishments go, with our office, we've attained accreditation. We're out of the 67 counties, there's only 7 sheriff's offices that have been able to attain that.
Oh, wow.
There's several hundred requirements that we have to meet, and we have to ensure that we're doing that consistently. So they reevaluate us every couple of years. I think that's probably the biggest accomplishment. We brought in the first canine explosive detection dog under my tenure.
Wow.
Number of grants, our records management system that we never had before. So there's a plethora of things that we've done countywide. I think as far as future goals and objectives, I want to make sure that I continue to make myself accessible and available. What people don't understand is this. When you do that, it becomes a 24/7 job, because it seems like everybody has my cell phone number. So
yeah,
I will get.
You're technically in retirement, sort of ish. Not really.
Not really. And if someone calls me, and I could be out to dinner with my wife or with my grandkids or whatever, I feel an obligation to answer that call and to be able to provide whatever advice or service I can. So I think continuing and moving forward, my goals and objectives for myself are to continue, and I belong to a number of boards. I'm the longest sitting member with Casa Guadalupe. I've been there for 25, 26 years. I'm currently the vice president. And I'm also the vice president of our police athletic league. So all of those things are, people would say, well, you're giving back to the community. The reality is that those organizations are truly giving back to me. They're giving me that self-satisfaction that, I guess that I'm needed. Yeah,
you definitely are. And speaking about making yourself available, I just really appreciate you you've always made yourself available to us. When we were planning this interview, I made the mistake of calling you while you were in Florida on vacation, and you still picked up your phone and answered it. So I can certainly attest to it. God should bless you with many more years of community service. And so Sheriff Joseph and Hanna, thank you for your time, and I appreciate you joining us as I walk through the valley.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining me as I walk through the valley. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to rate and subscribe to our show. If you have questions or would like to book a live recording or have a speaking request, please email rabbi@sonsofisrael.net. This is Moshe Kurtz. I look forward to having you join me next time as I walk through the valley.